All right, my name is Jake. I'm a recovered alcoholic. It's an honor to be here. I really do feel like God brought me here. And I feel like there's going to be some... my goal is for y'all to feel the presence of God today. And so I want to start the way that we usually end. But I'd like to start for us all to really host the presence of God. And let's just bow our heads and do the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, Lord in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not to temptation, Lord, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you all. I know God's already here, but I think it's always nice to assume that posture and invite God into the room. So I was thinking about what I was going to say today, and I prayed about it, and I meditated on it. And God told me that He wanted me to talk about Him today and His power. I'm nothing without God. Absolutely nothing. And it's through God's grace that I'm here. 100%. And, it's His power. Bill, I wanted also to honor some people. I wanted to honor Bill. Thank you for hosting me. Thank you for paying for our meals. I really do appreciate that. And, man, if you've heard Bill's story, God has kept him here for a reason. I mean, he should not be here. And just the way that you speak, Bill, and just the authenticity in which you speak. It's clear that God speaks through you. So I want to honor you. I wanted to honor a couple buddies who came here, Skylar and Bradley. Can y'all raise your hands? These two guys are in love with God, and they're chasing just this relationship with Him. And, I've always wanted some big brothers in my life, and I'm very grateful for both of you. I love y'all. So I'm thinking about where to start this, and it starts in the great, great state of New Jersey, the best state in the country. And we got one person from Jersey. We don't pump gas, but we pump fists. That's right. And I'm glad one showed up. Usually don't like me when I say that, but I tell you what, I love Lubbock, Texas. I've been here for a couple of years. It's really the friendliest city in America. And, y'all are so friendly, especially compared to New Jersey. Very, very friendly here. In New Jersey, they tell you they don't like you to your face, and here they just say it behind your back. But I'm okay with that. I really am. As long as you're nice to me, to my face, that's all I really care about. So, where does this start? I remember I was like 7 or 8 years old, and my mom was a real bad drinker. And I would see the way that she was before I went to school and the way that she was after I came home from school. And it was two completely different people. I always wondered why she drank like that if she knew that that's what was going to happen, that she was going to get upset and her and Dad were going to fight and she was going to throw stuff. And I just never understood why she did it. And so my dad was always away on business, and so I really became the man of the house. I would check her the levels on her wine bottles, and I would see that they'd been drinking. I'd help her up the stairs. I'd tell my sister to go to her room, and it wasn't fun. And at an early age, I understood what alcoholism was about, and I didn't like it. I'm going to put my phone up here because I could talk forever. I am from New Jersey. So, I didn't like it at all. And I always wonder why she did it, if she knew that this was what was ruining our family. And fast forward, all my friends started smoking and drinking, And I know I want to keep with the traditions, but drugs are a part of my story. So my friends started smoking and drinking in middle school, and I always said I was going to be a leader. I was never going to do that. And, I mean, after a while, you start losing some friends. And I remember the first time I went to a party and I drank and fell in love with the effect that it produced. And I tell guys that like today, where it's like, buddy, I didn't drink because dad hit me. Dad did hit me, right? I didn't drink because mom drank. Mom did drink. I drank because I like the effect produced. I like being drunk because it's solving something, right? It's solving this fear, this insecurity. All of a sudden I could talk to women. All of a sudden, I liked what you said, Bud, like I'm a little guy, but all of a sudden I feel big, and I'm trying to get into fights. I never won one. I never won one, but I had a lot of heart. And just a lot of heart. I get up and get knocked out again, and get back up. And so, like, alcohol solved this real big problem I had that in the beginning, right? Even before the drink, I'd suffered with fear and insecurity, not being comfortable in my own skin, always feeling different from you, feeling like I had to prove something to you. And whether that be through sports or through school, being the class clown, whatever it was, I had to prove myself to you because I didn't feel good about myself. And so I started drinking and fell in love with it. Dabbled into drugs for a little bit, and I like Bud said, I'm not going to go too far into the darkness, too far into being drunk. We all know what being drunk was like, and we can all connect on that, right? We're on the same page of crazy, but I don't want to get into that too much. I really want to talk about God, and so God pulled me out of this addiction. I remember I had gotten in trouble, and again, and I called my dad from jail again, and this time, I could hear him through the phone when the police officer called him, and he said, "I'm not picking him up," and they said, "Mr. Gruck, you don't understand. You got to pick your son up." And I remember he handed me the phone. I broke down. I said, "Dad, I'm done. Can't do it anymore. It's too hard." And so he picked me up, and I was an angry, wannabe little gangster, just total punk. Grew up in a nice, well-heeled neighborhood, but wanted to be from the hood, and really wanted to be a gangster. And he picked me up, and as I'm walking out, I thought the police officers were laughing at me, so I charged at them, and my dad tackled me in the station, and I've never seen it happen. He took me by the neck and threw me from one side of the room to the other side of the room. I've never seen anything like it. And so the next morning he sat me down, and he said, "We want you to go get some help." And I went from sad to angry so quick, and said, "I'm not doing it." And he said, "Okay, well, you're not welcome in our home. That phone you have, that car you have, that apartment we're paying for, it's all gone. Don't come to our house. Don't call us." And I was like, wow. And still I said, okay. And I remember sitting in a car with my buddies, and they were all older than me. They were all drug addicts. And I said, my parents really want me to get some help, but I don't have to. At the time I was selling drugs and wasn't very good at it, but thought I could get by. Like Bud was saying, these little epiphanies. I'm going to sell drugs the rest of my life. And it's hard to when you keep eating all of them. So anyways, I'm sitting in the car, and I said, they want me to get some help. I don't need to. And they said, "What do you think I should do?" And one by one, they all said, "I think you should go get some help. I think you should go get some help. You need to go." And they were all older than me. I was always that young kid who was drinking too much and puking, and they were laughing at me. And then all of a sudden, I turned into the one that they didn't really want to hang out with because I was drunk before I even started drinking, And it's crazy how quick that changed. And so I said, okay, I'll go. And I was on the flight, and there's no Wi-Fi on the flight. I know we have a young crowd here, so y'all know what Wi-Fi is. I'm glad I'm representing the young people of Lubbock, and y'all like me now. Maybe towards the end of this speech, you won't like me so much, but anyways, I'm on the flight, and all of a sudden, there's this app called SoundCloud you can listen to music to, and there was only about 5 or 6 songs that could play, and that's not possible. You know what I mean? It wasn't downloaded on my phone, and all those 5 or 6 songs talked about starting over. And I look back on it now, and I can see where God showed up. At the time, and you don't really think much of it. You kind of get these, it'd be nice to start fresh, and I'll go back, and I'll just get a little detox and come back. But now I can see just where God was. I mean, that's not possible. It's just not possible. You know, it's a miracle. And I remember going to treatment, and and the first conversation I ever heard was this older guy named Kurt, but we called him Mad Dog, and he liked Mad Dog, and the first conversation he talked about how he got drunk and he ended up naked in a Walmart, and he pooed himself, and that was the first conversation I walked into. Sorry, y'all are eating, but I should have thought about that one, Bill, but. Anyways, I'm being honest. That's what he said. And then I heard about, your 4 DUIs, and I had 1, right? And I heard about your 10-year stay in prison. You were bragging about it, and Daddy always bailed me out of jail, right? I heard about all this stuff, right? It was almost like y'all were having a competition about who was darker, right? Like, who was the worst human being, right? And I get it. I do that, but what it did was it separated me from you, right? It separated me from the root of the problem. And it wasn't my drinking. It wasn't the external. It was inward. It was my selfishness, my self-centeredness. That's what we all share. I mean, it might look a little different on the outside, but the root of this deal is selfishness. It's not your drinking. It's selfishness and self-centeredness. Sin. That's what it is. It's organizing this world to fit me. Right? And worshiping other things other than God so that I can get my way, so that I can get some relief. That's the root of this problem. And some people may not like to hear it, but that's the truth. Okay? So, once I actually read the book, realized that selfishness was my problem, all this stuff, and I didn't understand how, I could understand how God was working in your life. I could understand that there was a God, but I didn't know how he was going to work in my life. And no disrespect, there was this guy named Theron, and he was a total redneck. And, it just sounded a lot different than me. That's what I'll say. And it's funny, I was talking to someone, they said, "You don't sound like you're from New Jersey." I said, "Thank you." But anyways, I said, "Theron, I don't know how I'm going to have faith." And he said, "Buddy, you've had faith your whole life. You had faith in drugs, that they were going to let you feel the way you want to feel. You had faith in women, they make you feel good about yourself. You had faith in money, it lets you do the things you want to do when you want to do them. You've had faith in a lot of things." He said, "Buddy, have you ever fallen in love with someone?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Could you see it?" "Nope." "Could you hear it?" "No." "But you felt it and you acted on it, right? It changed the rest of your life." I said, "Oh, okay. That makes sense." And that's what this deal is, right? This God that I can't see. Man, I can hear him. And if I deny myself each morning and say, "God, I'm nothing without you, and I need you in my life," and I'm really tuned in, I'm hosting the presence, God's really tuning in, I hear him so clearly. And I can walk Like, that's when I can manifest my own destiny because it's aligned with God's will, right? And nothing bad happens from there. And I start to see that I'm not the only one here. That, like, it's not my world and you're living it. It's God's world and it's God's children. And it's my job to co-labor with God and bring his children home. I mean, that's crazy. I think about, 4 years ago, if you had told me that those words would be coming out of my mouth, I mean, I'd send you to the psych ward, I mean, but God's going to demonstrate through me what he can do today. And it's not me. It's not me at all. It's a powerful, loving God. And when I started to see this, right, in the step 3, we're like, here's the deal. Here's how I organize my life. I want something from you. Okay, it could be respect. It could be I want you to like me, or I actually just want something from you. And I'll either act in false kindness or I'll act in aggression, whatever the situation calls for. And what happens is I step on your toes because I've organized this world to fit me, and that doesn't fit you, right? And so I've stepped on your toes and you retaliate. Now all of a sudden I've got a bunch of people retaliating against me and life's out to get me. Right? I always get the short end of the stick. Police have nothing better to do. Like, they're doing their job, buddy. Like, if you weren't doing illegal things, you wouldn't get in trouble. Oh, pigs. Yeah, I mean, come on. What a punk. And that's what happens, right? I love when the big book says this, that even in our best moments, we were producers of confusion rather than harmony. I can act in false kindness all day, but I'm still producing confusion because over time I won't be nice to you if you tell me no. Right? See, that's the thing, man. Like, I'm so spiritual and I'm this godly man, and like, man, me and God are out on this mission, and then you tell me no. Right? And then I don't get what I want. And now all of a sudden I'm not as loving. I'm not as forgiving. We did the Lord's Prayer, right? And like that prayer is powerful. Our Father who Lord in heaven, hallowed be his name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's saying I can pull heaven down, right? That there is such a thing as heaven on earth. Guys, I don't believe in bad days anymore. I just don't. I know that's not popular. I know that it's this struggle bus one day at a time, and just you keep fighting, and you just don't drink, and you stay sober, and everything's That's not my experience. There's not 1 second that I don't feel the presence of God. And it feels as though I'm up in heaven with him. I mean, guys, I'm pinching myself every day because just God's miracles, I see him. I can feel him. I can feel him in this room. And it's strong. And we ought to get tuned into that power, get tapped into that power, lock into that power, which solves our problem. What's our problem? Me. It wasn't anything anyone did to me. It wasn't God. How dare we say that God did that? This loving God. Oh, God just put some obstacles in my way so I can learn something. Like, I heard one time in a meeting, he just let me flip the car with my kids in it so he could take my kids away and I'd learn something. That's some God. Anything other than love or compassion is not God. It's the world. It's me. It's sin. May not be popular, but it's the truth. So our troubles, we think are of our own making, right? We had to get rid of this selfishness. We must. It kills us. God makes that possible. It doesn't say that, like, I pray and I meditate and I do the next right thing and I go to 90 meetings in 90 days and I just keep working it. No, God makes that possible. That's the sentence. It's not me. Like, it's God changing my heart. It's God changing the way I think. Like, I cannot take credit for this thing. Like, the only thing I did was say yes. And God did the rest. I want to tell you that I worked my butt off and it's just, and every day I suit up and show up. And yeah, that's true. But like, God is allowing me to do that. It's not me. It's not me at all. So anyways, I remember going through a 4th and 5th step, and I had all these resentments towards people, specifically my dad, That was a big one. And as we're going through it, these guys start asking me, have you ever murdered someone? I said, no. They started asking me all these weird questions. I said, why are you asking me these stupid questions? And they said, well, man, you talk about all this dark stuff that's happened to you with no emotion. It's like we can't get to you. And I said, oh, that's weird. And towards the end of it, I had all this resentment towards my family, had all this resentment to people who had done some pretty sick things to me. And at the end, the guy who was facilitating it said, do you love your family? And I said, yes. And just broke down like a little baby. I had to cover my face because 2 grown men were sitting there and I couldn't cry in front of them. So I acted like a little kid and had to cover my eyes. But man, for the first time in my life, I experienced the presence of God just flow into me. Now, I did an hour meditation, and in that meditation, God was just taking me back through my whole life and showing me that He was there the whole time. That He's the director. I love that part in the book. He's the director. He's the father. We're the son. He's the principal. We're the agent. He's our employer. I had a feeling today, and we're going to get into this because there's a lot of lies being believed here. And I kind of had this vision that some people were going to get upset. But He's my employer, right? So I don't fear man. I fear Him. And so I'm going to do what He tells me to do. I believe that this message that I'm carrying has a lot of depth and weight, and it might sting, but I do believe it's the truth. I know it's the truth, and I believe God wants me to talk about it, and so I'm going to listen to Him because He's my employer. Now that's not to say I go to my job and I tell Him, well, God told me not to do that, so I'm not going to listen to you. No, God also put Him in your life to be your authority here, right? And we ought to treat our authority here as we would treat God. And that may be a tough pill to swallow, but it's the truth. So get through this 5th step, and I get through treatment. I go to this little 3/4 house, and that same guy Theron sees me, and he says, "How you doing, bud?" I said, "Oh, I'm great. Just one day at a time, just working it." And he goes, "Have you made any amends yet?" I said, "No," and he called me a selfish mofo. I said, "Excuse me," and because I had been working with guys, I was excited for newcomers to come in, and I could help them, and he called me a selfish mofo, and I was like, "Buddy, I've been here 20 minutes," and he was like, "You're selfish. You just don't get it, do you?" And I said, "I must not. What am I not getting?" And he said, "Man, you have been a tornado in people's lives, and that ought to be the first thing you do when you get out of here." And so I remember I was sitting there, and I said, "You know what? He's right." And all of a sudden, I thought about this psychiatrist I was seeing, and I was so bad. I was such a bad client. My dad and I would go. We'd try to work things out. We'd get into screaming matches, and then we'd fight when we get home. And there'd be some sessions where I wouldn't say anything. I'd just sit there for an hour, and my dad's paying for it. And it's just total punk. And I said, "Man, I wronged him." And all of a sudden I got this inspiration. When I feel the presence of God, I get a big tug on my heart, and it's just heavy. And God said, "Call him." And so I did. And I said, "Dr. Lazarus," he says, "Jake, I'm not sure if you remember." He's like, "I remember you." And I said, "I've harmed you in the following ways," and I listed them all off. I said, "Have I overlooked anything?" He said, "No." I said, "What can I do to make this right?" He said, "Honestly, Jake, I just got into a motorcycle accident. I'm walking out of the hospital right now." "Thank you so much." I mean, how does that happen? I get the inspiration to call this guy, and he's walking out of the hospital at the same time. God's powerful. I remember I was working at Red Lobster when I first got here to Lubbock, and I thought I was too good for Red Lobster, right? And I'm too good for this job, and I didn't have a car, and so I'd ride my bike 4 miles to Red Lobster, and the whole time, man, I'm not complaining. I'm in my stupid little costume. And the whole time, it was actually 5 miles. I cut it to 4 because I'd go on 289. And so cars would be honking at me. I'm pushing this bike up the hill because I smoked too many cigarettes. But the whole time I'm just thinking, man, God's working on my heart right now. God's making me humble. And like, man, life is so good, right? Like, we often forget how desperate we were. The book tells us to have the desperation of a drowning man, right? And if you've ever been dunked in the water, there's nothing you want more than to get some air, right? You're not thinking about that girl that looks good who's got 2 weeks sober, right? You're not thinking about how you don't get treated good enough at home. You're just thinking about getting some air. And so I had that desperation, and I remember I get there, and I get there, I smoke a cigarette because I deserve one after riding my bike 4 miles, and I get a Gatorade, and I walk in, and the general manager goes, "Hey, do you smoke?" And I thought he wanted to smoke. We were gonna have a little shindig out there in front of Red Lobster, and I said, "I do smoke." And he said, "You smell like cigarettes. Go outside and brush yourself off." And I wanted to say, "Bro, if you knew, like, this job is not worth me riding my bike 4 miles and you telling me to dust myself off outside." But I didn't say it. God was like, "Hold your tongue," right? Pause when agitated. And I walked outside, and I'm walking like this because I don't know how you get smoke off your, like, I don't know how that's possible, but I'm doing it, and I walk back in, and he said, "Your uniform's dirty. Go clean it up." My gosh, maybe it's because all the dust here in this godforsaken place, and I'm riding my bike here, and it's a black costume, and there's no way that it's not going to be dirty, and I'm going to have to deal with this my whole time here. And I wanted to hit him. I mean, I've got a Jersey temper. I mean, that's right, Joyzy. And it'll come out when I'm angry, don't worry. And so, I go there, and I just bite my tongue, and I get this table, and it's this lady's birthday, and she's a tough lady. She's got the hand tattoos and everything, and she's a tough lady. And I've got three beers in my hand, and this other waitress comes over, and her menu hit them, and just she's swimming in beer, and it's her birthday. And she starts cursing at me, and I don't know Spanish, but she called me a vato, and I didn't think it was good by the way she said it. All hell is breaking loose in Red Lobster, and I'm getting really scared, and like Bud said, that 12-year-old scared kid in me is starting to come out, and I'm starting to get tense, and I just want to leave and never come back. And I thought it was too good for Red Lobster, right? It was like, and so, man, God shows up. I go in the back, and I said a little prayer. It wasn't long. It wasn't this old English prayer. It was, "God, just get me through the night." And the next table I had was another birthday. I'm going, oh gosh, and they ordered a bunch of food, and the check comes, and I take it, and I swipe it, and come back, and I see on the tip it says 0. I was like, are you kidding me? They ordered $200 worth of food, and they're going to stiff me. And I looked behind the receipt, and it's a $100 bill. And man, I can remember it like it was yesterday. I cried like a little girl. And I went back to the table, and I'm like throwing up on the table, like, you don't understand. I've got 6 months sober. I'm in sober living. I'm paying for my bills. This is going to help me so much. Tears are coming down on the table. And the lady says 2 things. 1, you look like you needed it. And 2, I've been sober for 10 years. You keep doing what you're doing. God shows up. Every time he's faithful. Every time. Every single time. There's not one time I haven't called upon the Lord and he hasn't come. Not once. And to have a God, to have a Father in heaven that cares so much about his Son, it's incredible. I remember I remember going through the amends process, and I'm sitting with my mom and dad, and my mom's got about 9 years sober, and at this point, and we're sitting there, and I listed off, "Hey, Mom, I've harmed you in the following ways, and have I overlooked anything? No. What can I do to make it right?" She said, "You keep doing what you're doing, honey." She's an angel. I mean, she's a total angel. So sweet. And my dad's there. I said, "Dad, I've harmed you in the following ways. I've spit on you. I've swung on you. All the cars that I totaled, the lawyers that you paid for, the parking tickets that you had to pay for. I didn't speak to you for 2 years. I took advantage of your generosity. And I didn't treat you the way that you need to be treated as my dad. And I didn't respect you." And I said, "Have I overlooked anything?" And he was ready. It was like he was getting ready right as I was saying the amends to my mom. And he said, "Yeah, you have." And, we have a selective memory, right? And it is all hearsay, because I was blacked out most of the time. I mean, I really was. Anyways, and he said, and he started to list some things that I thought were less than what I listed, right? He said, "Man, that time we were playing golf and you ditched me and you played with another group, that really hurt. That family that you were hanging out with, you treated him like your dad, not me." And I'm just listening to this going, wow. And I said, "Dad, what can I do to make it right?" And he said, "Honestly, Jake, I just want to feel like you love me." And it's moments like that where God just kills you. I mean, where just the presence of God, and I could hear God through my dad's mouth. I mean, "I just want to feel like you love me." And that's all I wanted, And so I've made it my mission to make him feel like I love him. And, we didn't talk for 2 years, and that's my best friend. I call him every other day. And this deal is so much bigger than just getting sober. Like, it's getting connected with God. That's what this thing is. And God shows me those things. God reveals those things to me. It's not just about being sober, guys. It's so much. It's just scratching the surface. This deal is about God. It's a God program. So that's not to say, man, that I haven't strayed. At 6 months sober, I had stopped praying and meditating for a couple weeks, and I'd stopped hosting this presence, and I started to get entitled, and I started to think that the world should bow down to me because I'm sober, and that I deserve all these things because I'm a normal member of society, and I'm not putting poison in my body, I'm not getting in trouble, and so you owe me something, right? That's the mentality I had. And so all of a sudden, I hadn't been with a woman in quite some time, and my buddy from treatment said, "Let's go out to the bars and go chase some tail," and I said, "That sounds good." And I wasn't 21 at the time, and so the first dishonest thing I did was ask someone for their ID. That wasn't mine. It ended up getting confiscated, and I got a ticket for it. I didn't drink. But I got a ticket, and I'm starting to say, okay, how am I going to pay off this? It could be anywhere from $200 to $500. I don't have that kind of money. I'm making financial amends to my parents. How am I going to pay that? And without God, my best solution was to start gambling, and to start gambling on sports. And I should have known the first time, because I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was the Patriots and the Steelers. And I knew the Patriots were good on the spread. They were going to cover. And Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, the game was over. It was over. Ben Roethlisberger, the last 4 seconds, throws a touchdown that was meaningless. I mean, he wasn't going to win the game. And he still threw, I don't know why they threw the ball. And I lost a lot of money. And I start gambling even more. And now I'm starting to run into a big debt. And I'm working at this place called Healthy Meals to Go. This guy, he's not here in Lubbock anymore, but this guy, Pierce, I went to treatment with, and I just broke his anonymity. But sorry, he's out in Midland, and digging a hole. And anyways, and I loved this man. He gave me a job. I had a bad record, and he allowed me to get on my feet, and he even offered to pay for a car. I mean, a good man. And now all of a sudden I'm stealing from him to pay off these gambling debts. And I'm sober, right? Like, without God, I get worse sober. Like, without God, I am worse. I honestly don't think I'd be doing that if I was drunk. I really don't. I wouldn't remember. I wouldn't come up with all these little schemes and designs. Drunk, I'd be passed out. And so, I'm running into a big mess. All of a sudden, I'm hanging out with my buddy who I went to treatment with, who was drinking at this point, and I open up the fridge, and there's a 40 staring right at me. And for the first time, I'm going, oh gosh, that sounds good. And man, by the grace of God, I called my sponsor, because all these. Here's the deal: like, man, my selfishness leads to dishonesty, which leads to resentment. Fear leads to dishonesty, which leads to selfishness, which leads to resentment, and resentment leads to delusion. Right? If I'm resentful at you, I'm delusional. That's a child of God. I have no right to be angry at a child of God, at God's perfect handiwork. I ought to see the gold in people, right? And I'm getting resentful at you. I remember this one guy said this to me, and I got so angry. I was pissed at him. He said, buddy, I don't have the power to make you angry. And I was like, F you. But he was right. He doesn't. I don't have the power to make, no one has the power to make me angry. And so I stayed in this delusion long enough, and now all of a sudden, I just needed 6 months of a detox, right? Maybe I'm not an alcoholic. Maybe I don't have a problem. Maybe I just needed to clean myself up and call my sponsor, and we sat down. And the cool thing, man, was this is such a loving man. He truly understands what relationship with God looks like. And I said, I'm about to drink, dude. And I'm in gambling debt. I've been stealing from this man that I love. All this stuff. I got this ticket. Yeah, and he goes, he didn't say, well, look what happens when you're selfish, or you keep doing this, you're going to die. I hate when people say that at meetings, man. Like, you really think fear is going to keep me, like, from drinking? You really think you're going to scare me into a relationship with God? What is that? That's not what this program is. That's not what God is calling you to do. Not a loving God. And so, he said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pray and meditate every day. You're going to send me a text message when you do that. We're going to do one kind thing for someone else when no one's looking. And we're going to talk to God throughout the day. For everything. What groceries should I get, God? Everything. And through the grace of God, I had to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for a little bit, but through the grace of God, I was able to pay back that debt. I was able to pay off my parents on top of the financial amends. I was able to sit my boss down and say, Pierce, I've been stealing from you. This is how much I stole, and I have it. And he said, I knew you were stealing from me. And he said, I was waiting for this moment. And whoa. That's a godly man, someone you meet in treatment, and you give him a job and you take him under your wing. He's stealing from you, and you're just waiting for God to show up in his life when he comes back to you. Powerful stuff. I want to get into, I've got like 10 minutes. I got some time? Okay. I want to get into who God says you are, okay? God says that you are a child of God, okay? And that's your identity first and foremost. Not alcoholic, not addict. Your true identity is child of God. We were made on this earth to worship. and we can decide to worship other things, right? It's not a sin to be thirsty, to thirst for more, right? In the good book, it says, I count everything as a disappointment compared to what Christ has done for me, right? Like, it's not a bad thing to thirst for more. I mean, we are spiritual beings trapped in this human condition, and everything here is going to rust, right? We can hoard up all the wealth we want in the world. It will die, and so will we, right? So it's not bad to thirst for more, but where are you quenching that thirst? If you're quenching that on ego, on pride, on showing up to meetings, I'm just going to put my sponsee, I'm going to lace him up, right? I'm going to show him how to do this thing. If you're putting it in money, if you're putting it in women, you will never be satisfied, ever. That's my experience. But there is one who has that power, and that one is God, and He is the living waters. We will never thirst. We will never be unsatisfied by going to Him. He's the source. I have a buddy who says, man, like it's like those TVs, right? You unplug them, it goes black. There's no middle of the road there. The source is God. If I get unplugged from God, I'm done. Nothing. There's no middle of the road of this thing, right? I like that one cliche. I'm not a big fan of the cliches, but I do like the one cliche. You stand in the middle of the road long enough, you're going to get hit. And it's true. It is true. I've been middle of the road. It's not fun. It's not. I'm a tornado, middle of the road. So what I want to tell you, and there's a couple things that get in the way of God as the source, and that's loving things of this world, right? Loving the money, loving the pride, loving the ego, loving the way that I look, right? Fitting this world, designing this world to fit me. That gets in the way of God every single time. If my problem is selfishness, what's the solution? Maybe selflessness. And the only way that I'm selfless is through the power of a loving and powerful God that I need to get connected to on a daily basis. I need to deny myself on a daily basis, get connected to the source, and then I can be selfless, right? All of a sudden, like my eyes are open, the curtain is open, and I realize I'm not the only one here, right? And God has provided for me. Man, I had a 0.05 GPA at my last school, and my dad says, you got to try to do that. And I said, you're damn right. And I had a bad legal record, and Texas Tech gave me a scholarship because I was sober. I mean, come on. I'm going to graduate in December with a degree in financial planning. I've got a 3.9 GPA. You want to talk, and I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, I'm saying this to show what God can do, because it's not me. I mean, if you want evidence of God, it's everywhere. The 0.05 to the 3.9, getting in trouble to not getting in trouble. I mean, it's everywhere. And so I want to encourage you guys. Those who asketh, receiveth. If you seek, you will find. Those are cosmic truths. And I want to tell you, it's like those... I'd never been around these old radios, but from what I've heard, the older radios that you had to tune in just right, and you start to hear it clearly, right? And so am I tuning in? Am I plugging in? God will take care of the rest. That's the cool thing about God, man. Like, He's going to take care of the rest. You know, I don't have to struggle. I don't have to strive. I don't have to propel myself into situations. But what I do have to do is tune in. And man, when I'm tuned in, all I can see is God. All I can hear is God. And there's been some really cool things that have happened. So I want to thank, first of all, I'd like to thank God. I know that it is a God of your own understanding, but it is Jesus Christ that has helped me, that has pulled me out of addiction. And anything less than that, me saying that would be dishonest. I know where that leads. And so all the glory goes to Him first. I want to thank all of y'all for being here and listening to me. I hope I didn't take y'all to school or beat you up or anything. It's not my intention. I want to build you up. We have two guys right here, Skylar and Bradley. We're going to stay afterwards here and pray for anyone who needs prayer. And you will feel the presence of God. You will. You will feel God's love. And we really want to do that. And so Lastly, Bill, thank you. Thank you to everyone here. It's truly been an honor, and I love y'all. Thank you.